Hi, I'm Neddie. It has come to my attention that some of you guys are unsure how to use a frequency shifter. I've seen people using them too much or not enough, so I thought it was finally time to show you guys why I use them so often and how I use them. First, I'll talk about how a frequency shifter works. Then, we'll get an example of how I would use a frequency shifter in a scenario, and then I'll tell you some things I would avoid doing. So let's get into it. First off, let's get a better understanding of what a frequency shifter does. According to Google, it raises or lowers the frequency of an input signal. It does this using a complex amplitude modulation-like technique. Let's look at this line here. The frequency shifter does not preserve the harmonic relationships between the various tones and harmonics in the input signal. This means that it'll take your sound and then move them in a manner that entirely alters its natural sound. Let's take the saw wave for example. If you pitch bend it down, it sounds like this. But if you frequency shift it down, it sounds like this. We can even compare these two EQs to see how they act differently. So now let's see how to actually use this in a sound design scenario. We have this little bass sound here. This is what it sounds like without any effects. Now let's frequency shift it. Notice how it changes the sound? I personally use this all the time to get different tonalities from the basses that I'm making. Let's pair a frequency shifter with a Corpus for example. Corpus basically creates metallic sounds out of thin air, so it's perfect for getting metallic tonalities. If we frequency shift this around, we get so many different variations of the same sound with this thing alone. You can get really creative with this. I've used the frequency shifter for drop fakeouts.
Hi, I'm Neddie.
Weird melodic harmonies. There are some things I would avoid doing though. First thing I try to avoid is using a frequency shifter on melodic elements, since it'll ruin the melodic aspect of it and make it sound super evil. That means that you can make some scary sounding stuff by shifting a melodic sample up or down for the purpose of making it sound like that. Another thing I try to avoid doing is if you have a sub bass on a sound, try not to shift it up, since the sub will come with it and taint the sound. Some more things I would avoid is using the coarse knob. It seems tempting, but I would only use it in the most desperate attempts to get a variation of your bass. That knob has such a huge range that it shifts too far in any direction to have that classic effect. Of course, you can always make exceptions to these things. There's no hard rules, just my recommendations on how I use a frequency shifter. Some other stuff you could try out is using the LFO. It'll frequency shift it in whatever pattern you choose by the amount you choose. The amount is just like the fine knob, and the rate controls how fast it shifts around, which you can set to match with your track's BPM. The phase will do some weird panning. I usually just leave that on 0 degrees since I don't want to get stereo from the LFO. Then we have the ring modulation button. This does something. I use it sometimes to create cool tonalities if I don't have other options to make basses. So with that said, I hope you learned something about frequency shifters. Let me know if you like this video with a comment down below, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in another video. Goodbye.